when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning. Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning and welcome to the morning show here on Tobago Updates Television. It is Monday, 27th January 2025, and we're coming to you live from the Port Mall here in Scarborough, Tobago. I am Adana Kumbi. This is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice. Yes, we will rejoice and be glad in it. What a privilege it is to be in the land of the living. So we stop to take a moment to give God thanks for life, for He's the one who has given us life this morning, and so we do not take anything for granted. We also want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for all of you who view us on all of our channels and all of our streams. We really do appreciate you, and it is because of you why we are #1 in Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, we thank you so much, whether you're viewing on our Facebook live stream, on our YouTube channel, or on AMPLIA 102 or Flow 121 or 132. I hope I got the channels correctly. I think I did. Yes, we're recently transmitting on Flow as well, so we're really grateful for that. And of course, as I said, it's because of you why we can expand our bandwidth. So we do hope that you continue to stay with us, you continue to encourage us, and you continue to spread the love and the joy that we have to share with you as well. We have a lovely show lined up for you this morning, but before we get in, we head on over to the news in 90 seconds. All right, before we get into the news in 90 seconds, of course, I want to take this time to say a pleasant good morning to all of you who are joining us on our live streams this morning. Whether you're viewing us right here in Tobago, in Trinidad, in the Caribbean region, the United States of America, Canada, England, all of Europe, all of Asia, Australia, Africa, wherever you are, of course, we thank you so much for being with us this morning. And we do hope that as we go through the conversations this morning, that you are able to stay with us. Of course, leave your comments on our Facebook live streams. We're at the end, the last week, in fact, of January 2025. So we'd like to know, how was January for you? In fact, I feel as if this January is the shortest January I've ever experienced. You know, if you can recall, you hear a lot of persons complaining that January is so long. But here we are, the last week, and we must give God thanks for sustaining our lives, for keeping us. I hope you have set your goals and that you are working towards them, and that you are overcoming challenges one step at a time. And you know, while we are waiting for the news in 90 seconds, I want to say congratulations, Tobago. Of course, Tobago is proud. All of Tobago is screaming and bubbling with joy. Yes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you gotta wait until the news at 90 seconds. News in 90 seconds, we'll talk about it then. But for now, I can tell you I'm bubbling with joy. Yes, and all of Tobago is, as we head on into that festive season where we celebrate, you know, the culture of Tobago. I hope our news is ready now, so I'm going to head on over to the news in 90 seconds. Life in media. These are some of the things you can expect, and of course you have to be able to manage. So here is me managing while I continue to speak with you lovely guys this morning. So you might be wondering, what are we excited about? What are we celebrating? Well, we are celebrating the fact that a Tobago band, yes, Panorama, medium bands, finals was on the weekend. Was on the weekend. And guess what? T and Tech New East Side Dimensions, we won. Yes, we won. And I will say we, although I did not play with the band, but when I say we, I represent all of Tobago in that statement. So we must say congratulations to that band. Congratulations to the arranger, Mr. Kersh Ramsey, and all the talent that comes out of Tobago. We will talk more about it again later on, but for now, we head on over to the news in 90 seconds.
Thank you, Adana. Here is your news in 90 seconds for Monday, January 27, 2025. 3 Tobago bands participated in the 2025 National Panorama Small Conventional Bands Final in Skinner Park last Saturday. TNTech New Eastside Dimension and Golden Hands Orchestra were crowned winners and both sharing the title of the 2025 National Panorama Small Conventional Bands Champions. Arranger Kirsch Ramsey and Vanessa Headley Brewster celebrated the shared victory, emphasizing their band's resilience, legacy, and the steel pan's transformative global potential. Ramsey, arranger for TNTech New Eastside Dimension, expressed pride in the shared victory, stating, "This is my second win in 2 years." The other two bands, Uptown Fascinators, placed 5th, while First Citizens Tobago Panthers placed 10th. Congratulations to all. Up next, Ezekiel Phillips, 34 of Bonaccord, has been charged with the murder of Dejon Melville, who died on January 17th after being set on fire at a house in Bonaccord on January 8th. Police reported that Melville, found engulfed in flames, was taken to the Scarborough General Hospital and later transferred to the Port of Spain General Hospital, where he succumbed to his injuries. Phillips is set to appear before a Scarborough Magistrate Court on January 27th. And finally, Public Utilities Minister Marvin Gonzalez stated that an electricity rate increase is unlikely for 2025, despite the Regulated Industries Commission recommending increases up to 199% for industrial customers. He dismissed claims that the election's concerns influenced this position, stressing that the government prioritized national interests. The RIC's 2023 proposal submitted to the cabinet sparked significant public opposition and protests, some of which became disruptive. While Gonzalez acknowledged TNTech's $6.16 billion debt to the National Gas Company as a reason for higher rates, he noted the matter remains under cabinet review with no immediate resolution anticipated. And that was your news in 90 seconds.
Thank you, Bianca, for our news there in 90 seconds. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the morning where we celebrate with those who are celebrating. It's time for our birthday shout-outs. And starting off the birthday shout-outs, we say happy belated birthday to Trisha Bukaj Sobers. This is Minister Trisha. Yes, she celebrated a birthday yesterday, and we say happy belated birthday to you. Happy birthday season. We pray God's blessings upon your life, and we do hope that you have a wonderful birthday season. Happy birthday to you, Trisha. Next is Wilkinson Ellison Corker. He is celebrating a birthday as well, and we say happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. We pray God's blessings upon your life, and we do hope that you have a wonderful birthday today. Happy birthday to you. Asha Toby Alfred also celebrated a birthday, so this is also a belated birthday as well, and we say happy belated birthday to you. Happy birthday season, and we do hope that you have a wonderful birthday and that this year is amazing for you as well. And finally, bringing up the birthday celebrations, this is another belated birthday. This is Alice Moy Mackenzie. She celebrated a birthday yesterday, and we want to say happy belated birthday as well to you. All of our birthday celebrants, we do appreciate you, and we do hope that as you continue to celebrate, that you experience the love and the joy of celebrating a birthday, that you are able to celebrate it with your loved ones, your friends, your family, and those who are, near and dear to you. And of course, if you're celebrating, whether it's a birthday, an anniversary, a promotion, a retirement, a baby dedication, whatever you are celebrating, we join in the celebration with you, and we remind you to put God first. Invite him in the celebration. He is the sole reason why you even have something to celebrate, so do not leave him out. It is Monday morning, and you might be wondering what's in my cup. What's in my cup is sponsored by LCJ Delights, and this morning I am still drinking my Sorrel Bay Leaf Tea because that thing tastes so good, and I think I'm going to hold on to that until the end of January. Yes, it tastes really good. So you can get your teas, you can get also porridge, you can get the flour to make your pancakes and your waffles there from LCJ Delights. So check them out for all that is good where that is concerned. are we speaking with this morning? We start off our conversations by speaking with Inspector Mahalia Bacchus of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Services, and of course bringing the TTPS updates and also safety tips for women during the carnival season. So you do want to be a part of that conversation. Then we speak with Dr. Denise Sawyer-Angus, the former presiding officer, and we're talking about the standing order protocol. As you might be aware, an incident took place in the house last Thursday, and so we will go through that discussion as well. Then we wrap things up by speaking with Mr. Caleb Phillips, and Mr. Caleb Phillips is speaking about crime from facilitation to prevention. Very, very important conversations this morning, and we do hope that you can stay with us throughout the entire programming as we go through the conversations. We also invite you to be a part of the conversation. You can leave your comments on our Facebook live stream or on our YouTube channel. Remember, this is your opportunity to tell all your family and all your friends, all your loved ones, far and wide, to share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Tobago Updates Television, and thank you so much for staying with us. We begin conversations this morning in studio. You know, as it's Monday morning, we always speak with our representative from the TTPS, and this morning we're speaking with Inspector Mahalia Bacchus as she brings the TTPS crime updates for us here on the island of Tobago. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Adana, and good morning to the listening public. I'm happy to be here this morning.
We're happy to have you. You know, when we have TTPS, we have to get into the conversation. We want to find out the things that are happening. And it is no news to persons. We saw that there was an incident taking place there over the weekend at the CAD supermarket in Lowlands, right? And of course, social media is a space where things happen rapidly. So we want to get the facts and as much as you can give us where that is concerned in terms of the robbery that took place there and what stage are we at in terms of the TTPS, any apprehensions, what is happening where that is concerned.
All right, so Adana, what I would just like to, before we get into that, say to the public and the persons who are viewing worldwide, Tobago is still a very safe space, right? And the officers of the TTPS here in Tobago continue to do our best to ensure that it remains that way. Regardless of what is the few things that are happening around us, this space is one that is safe and we will continue to keep it like that. Well, what we would have seen is that a man dressed in camouflage went into CAD supermarket over the weekend and demanded cash from the cashiers that were there. And he had patrons who were inside as well. He caused them to go on the floor and he took money and he ran out of the establishment. Within this incident, one of my officers was also injured. A very hard-working officer and a young one at that who is aspiring who will become one of the best officers throughout the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, right? And it would have hurt the entire Trinidad and Tobago Police Service what would have happened to him. And it is a sad day when we have criminals firing on the police in Trinidad and Tobago. But I would like to let them know that we remain resilient and we are not going to accept that kind of behavior in our space from any criminal. Because what I believe is that the law-abiding citizens outweigh more than the persons who commit these crimes. And I'm asking the communities in Tobago, in particular where I reside, to stand up. Let us stand up and really try to change what is happening and get rid of these criminal elements that are among us. Because somebody knows who this person is. Somebody knows who this individual is that carried out this act, right? Our officer could have died. Other persons could have died as well within that activity on that day, right? And I want us to become upset enough to be able to tell the police who this person is. So I'm asking persons who may have information about this incident, please let the police know. We cannot have somebody as brazen as that within our society existing. All right, so I would just like to let the public know. Please give us any information that you can to let us bring some justice to this situation.
Not just this one, but other crimes that are committed.
All crimes.
There are speculations on social media, as I mentioned, as a place where all things happen there. There are speculations to an arrest. Can you confirm if an arrest was made and what is the situation where that particular incident is concerned?
We did have one suspect in custody. The person is no longer in custody. And if anybody knows how investigations are conducted, you have information, you have to get evidence and so forth in order to properly put someone before the court or held them culpable for a crime, right? And as it happened, we received information and we treated with it accordingly. But the matter is still under investigation, so I can't divulge as much information about what is really happening pertaining to the processes that we are going through right now. But I'm really asking the public, any information that you can provide to assist in the investigation will be very valuable to the police right now.
All right. Of course, it's something that we discussed here on Tobago Updates Television. Once we have the TTPS, if you're in a community, if you see something, say something. And of course, there are the hotlines that you can give information anonymously if you are afraid of being, a target. But we need to come together to fight the criminal elements in Trinidad and Tobago. Are there any other updates in terms of crime that you can report on this morning that happened over the past week or weekend thereabouts?
Well, I'm happy to report as well, Adana, there was an incident over the December period where a man was found engulfed in flames in the Crown Point district. And the police conducted extensive investigations. And we have one male individual that has been charged and he's supposed to appear in court today for this homicide. Right? The investigations was led by PC Turpin of the CID, and he was ably assisted by the homicide department. And it was a networking and conglomeration of all the units in the Tobago space that led to the arrest of this individual and him going to court today.
Okay, well, that's good. I hope that we could continue to get those types of, reports coming in terms of being able to not only just apprehend, but also to detect crime. And I hope the intelligence continue to come in so that you're able to, intercept so that the level of crime will reduce on the island of Tobago, because, it is very alarming. Every time you hear something, all of Tobago will be in an uproar because that is not who we are as a people. That's not what
Exactly.
we're used to. That is not our culture. So when something happens, whereas somebody else might say that's just one or that small thing, for us here in Tobago, it's not just one. It is one. We see it as something different. So, I just
Exactly.
hope that we can really come together. Communities across Tobago can come together and work with the TTPS. Before we move on to the next topic, in terms of collaborative efforts with the other agencies, what is that like in terms of ensuring I will continue to talk about protecting our borders and all the other things that will, that will lead towards reducing crime and apprehending criminals?
Well, Adana, we do have that collaborative effort actually taking place right now under the state of emergency in the Tobago space. We work side by side with the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. So you have the officers, the soldiers, along with the Coast Guard officers do patrols with us, operations as well. And the SOE gives them that power to search and to do certain things as well during the state of emergency. So I'm happy to report that in the Tobago space, we have conducted 122 operations, and this would have been joint operations within the Tobago space. And we have had 54 persons arrested within that time. And within the space of the state of emergency, we have recovered 3 pistols here in Tobago, right? And this is important to us, the recovery of those firearms, because firearms are the major cause of what is giving us that problem now in Tobago. So we are also encouraging persons, where you have information about persons with firearm, please inform the police, because we need to remove them from the streets. We have to remove them from the streets, and they don't operate on their own. A firearm can't shoot someone by themselves, right? So there's somebody operating that firearm or has it in their space or their care. We need to know. We need to remove them, because one bullet can take the lives of many persons.
That's absolutely correct, and we will continue to work with the TTPS to ensure that we can bring the place back to some place that is safe for all of us. This morning we're talking about we entering into the carnival season, the carnival period in Trinidad and Tobago, with so many activities taking place, so many events taking place where people are going out, they're having a good time. We just came back, when I say we, I mean Panorama just concluded on the weekend, the small bands, and of course congratulations again to Tobago for coming in first there. So other activities are taking place, other events are taking place, and people are going out, whether they're going by themselves or they're going with groups or they're going however they're going out. And so this morning we want to talk about being safe at carnival time, especially for women. So how do we approach this situation? I know we've had conversations like this before, but just to reiterate things that we should take into consideration when we go out to events.
Yes, and you are so true. We are in the festive season, and we know women love to enjoy themselves, because most time men, they take the women along with them, or women go by themselves, or they go in groups. So going in groups is a good thing. It also helps to provide that another layer of security when you have someone else with you. All right. But if you are alone, when you do get to these events, you have to know your limit, right? In terms of how much alcohol that you would intake at the event. Because the alcohol can impair your sense of judgment and how you behave at that point in time. And sometimes after all is over, you're not sure what would have happened, right? So we are asking that you look at your alcohol intake whilst you are there. You also, if somebody is, don't have people prepare drinks for you, right? If you can get your drink for yourself, you do that, right? And if you have to leave your drink somewhere, try to avoid that. Have your drink in your view at all times to prevent someone placing any sort of drug into your drink and have you in some state that you can't control yourself after. I clearly remember there was a date rape drug called Gamma, and that drug looks as clear as water. So you would not know that it is a substance that can harm you, and somebody could easily place that in your drink, and after you don't know yourself as an individual. So it is always good to be careful where you place your drink. Always have it in your view at all times, right? If you could limit cash, you try to avoid too much cash on you at that when you go out, so that nobody could make you a target. If you go into your purse, they may see all that money in your purse, and after when you're leaving, somebody follows you and tries to target you to take your money from you, right? Keep your cell phone charged, because sometimes somebody may need to reach you, and then or you get into difficulty and you need to reach someone and your phone is dead, you can't call anybody, right? And also inform someone that you are going, where you are at all times, which is very, very important. If you get into a car, one of the things I saw persons practice in the past, as a female, you stop a vehicle, you send somebody the vehicle number that you just went into. All right, if you take a picture of it before and all, and you send it to someone, this is the vehicle that I left in, or this is the vehicle that I'm coming home in or something, right? So somebody will know this is the vehicle that she was in, I can't get in contact with her. That will help the police to find a direction to locate the individual who the vehicle belongs to, right? You don't have to prove yourself to anybody, so you could try to conduct yourself when you're out at these events, right? How you carry about yourself and what you do is very important, because, you know, people are looking at you, and then some people might take some of the things that you do in a different light. How you behave, advances you may make, somebody may take it the wrong way, and then people might want to take advantage of you, right? So these are some of the few things as women that are very important for us whilst we are outside there enjoying ourselves in some of these parties and some of the places that we may want to go. Even you're going to play mass, you know, try to do it with somebody else with you, giving you that company. As I said, it's an extra level of security for you, that you have company when you do that.
And you know, you mentioned something that I think a lot of people take for granted, and that's ensuring that you charge your cell phone, ensuring that your cell phone is fully charged. Because sometimes you go out, you might probably intend to be out for an hour, 2 hours, maybe 3, and depending on how the mood takes you, I suppose, you might end up at another event or another event, and so you want to ensure that your phone is fully charged so that you are reachable, or if you're in a sticky situation, you are able to make a phone call. Not just charge, you know, but what about some credits? Ensuring you have credits, ensuring you have credits on your phone as well. And what about in terms of this might probably be general, but in terms of parking, like when you go to these events, some of them, they might have designated parking or they might not, and you have to find alternative ways to park. How should, in terms of safeguarding yourself when you have to return to your vehicle, let's say the event finishes in the dead of night and you have to return to your vehicle, what is the safest space or place to park your vehicle?
Well, it depends on the where the event is being held and where the parking is. And most times before the event is given the go-ahead from the police, this is some of the things that we look at: where your parking is situated, the lighting conditions, and so on at the time. And when we ask for a particular strength, sometimes it caters for that. So sometimes they have the car park area, you will have officers posted there. So it will cause that level of comfort that people know that the police is there. So when you finish, you're going back to your car, or even whilst you're having fun, the police is there paying attention to the vehicles within the space that nobody could break into your car, right? So it is to just say it depends on where the event is being held. If you're not sure, I'm sure there will be officers there. You can approach an officer and ask them to just accompany you to your vehicle, because you probably feel uncomfortable doing so by yourself. I'm sure that they would do so with you. They will assist you.
All right. You know, of course, very, very important and relative tips that you're giving there this morning, in terms, relevant rather, tips that you're giving this morning in terms of how do you keep yourself safe. Is there any other additional information you'd like to share with us this morning? Yes,
I would also like to just remind persons that whilst we want to have fun for the carnival and we are leaving home, please ensure that your homes are well secured, right? People are still taking a lot of things for granted. They're leaving windows open. They are not securing their doors properly, locks that can be easily picked by a bandit. There are persons who are surveilling us. They are looking at the times that you are not there, and they take advantage of that, right? So we have to ensure that you don't leave large sums of cash in your house. Utilize the banks, the credit unions, the financial institutions, your jewelry and stuff. If you could afford to purchase a safe or something to store your items into, that will be harder for them to get to it, right? But don't leave stuff lying around as well. We are still having issues with people stealing brush cutters. A hot item right now is televisions missing, right? And I just want to remind the public that every time a television goes missing, I'm of the firm belief that somebody is purchasing it. Somebody is purchasing that stolen item. So if you have information as well, anybody coming around, they're not courts, they're not standards, and approaching you to purchase a television, please contact the police, because it could be someone's property that they would have spent money for and now they would have lost because someone broke into their home and stole that item. All right, so secure your items properly. and invest in a CCTV camera system, right? Even though it happens, it also assists the police in the investigation going forward to have an idea who the perpetrator might be, who we are looking at, whether he's masked or not, right? It may give us some clues that may assist in the investigation. So you could invest in a CCTV camera, lights around the property. So I talk about more lights, more locks, right? And better neighbors, right? Let us be our neighbor's keeper and look out for one another.
All right. Thank you so much, Inspector Mahalia Bacchus. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been speaking with Inspector Mahalia Bacchus of the TTPS, bringing crime updates and, of course, tips on how to be safe for this carnival season. Up next, we have Mr. Caleb Philip, a concerned citizen this morning, and we're going to have a conversation this morning about, we're talking about from facilitation to prevention. Are we talking about crime? Yes, absolutely. So you want to be a part of that conversation. But before we get into that, we head on over to a break. And in the meantime, we invite you to help us. Share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.
Want to get better? Where to start? What kind of exercise to do? What to eat? How to get restful sleep? Need a doctor to search for root cause? Look no further. Come to Majuba Hill Lifestyle Center Foundation at our Wellness Center in Goodwood, or Food Hub in Darrow Springs, Scarborough, or Doctor's Office in Goodwood and Darrow Spring. Contact 49 Swift 4979 438.
When the game is on, you don't want to miss the best moments. With AMPLIA TV, you can enjoy our ultimate sports package and watch your favorite games on the go. Stay connected and informed with sports news, scores, and stats with AMPLIA's fastest internet speeds. Up to 1 gigabyte fiber internet, you can stream riveting football action, cricket, NBA games, and much more. With AMPLIA, it's game on. Visit amplia.co.tt or call 800-4663. AMPLIA. Do more, live more.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning. Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Tobago Updates Television, and thank you so much for staying with us. We continue conversations this morning in studio, and we're staying on the topic of crime. This morning our next guest is Mr. Caleb Philip, and he is speaking about crime from facilitation to prevention. A very, very important and interesting topic this morning as we get into that conversation. Good morning, Mr. Philip, and welcome.
Thank you very much. Morning to Tobago Updates, morning to Tobago, morning to Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension for those listening throughout the world on the World Wide Web, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you are. Good morning.
Of course, and of course you are a concerned citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, as it relates to crime. In fact, I think we all are, and we all should be. This morning you want to talk about, your topic is facilitation to prevent, from facilitation to prevention. So first of all, before we get into what that means, can we just get an overview as to what are some of the things that are concerning to you that, you know, made you or brought you to the place where, you know, I need to have this type of conversation?
Well, I think the position I am in, every conscious citizen in Trinidad and Tobago should be in the same position, because the crime rate is too much to mention at this point, and something has to be done. Something has to be done, and done quickly. So that brought me to where I am here now.
Right. And so you're talking about from facilitation. Facilitation of what and prevention of what? Is it crime we're talking about? Is it what exactly are you talking about, and how do you see crime being facilitated at this point in time?
Well, you're taking a little bit out of the what I have on the paper here, but what happens is that when a person commits a crime, that person is being arrested by the police. And from when the arrest is made, the person is taken, perhaps if he's on the street, into a police vehicle, taken to the station. They might be processed. After a couple of days, they get bail. After going to a court that is already clogged with cases, they go to that place, and the case drags on for a long time because there are lots of cases at the court. And the person is either sent to prison or set free if they are successful in their matter. And the cycle continues. You send them to prison, and then in prison, you maintain them. I learn at a cost about 25 to 30,000 a month, and the cycle continues like a solo. You commit the crime, the police pick you up, take you to the station, they process you, they carry you to court, you go to prison, or you may be set free or go to prison. And that is a solo, like a poetry. Right? So I want to talk a bit about how this crime develops in this country, and some of the facilitation processes, and how this can be prevented.
Okay.
Right.
So let's get into to the actual,
Right. So illiteracy is the first step that leads to behavior, or irresponsible sexual behavior, I must say. Illiteracy. And there is no plan that can overcome the cost of individual irresponsibilities. Our irresponsible sexual behavior leads us to the nursery rhyme, which says, there was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she did not know what to do. So she gave them some broth without any bread, and whipped them soundly, and sent them to bed. What is important in that nursery rhyme, which was, I think, first printed somewhere about 1794, the woman has no name, and the children has no number, except to say, so many, which means too many. The woman in that nursery rhyme points to all of us. It's a parable. In that nursery rhyme, there seems to be no father present, no food, plenty licks, no love, no training, no parental guidance, and from mother to children, it seems it was unending frustration. Some of these children will end up in the schools, some in the streets, but nearly all of them will end up in trouble with the police. As they go out in the community to seek on their own, they rob, they steal, they kill. And here begins the cycle of facilitation, which I'll explain a little more later. There are tens of thousands of this example throughout Trinidad and Tobago. So the example of the woman having a lot of children, no father in place, no responsibility in place, no parental responsibility. Trinidad and Tobago is littered with that woman, the behavior of that woman. And that woman represents all of us. And this is like a system producing more criminals than the police can deal with.
So you're saying that based on what you've read so far, what you've said so far, you're talking about a home that does not have two parents. So it's like a woman bringing up children on her own, primarily leading to the increase in crime?
Well, not necessarily. Doesn't have two parents. You have two parents in homes where they're not being responsible. They don't take time to train their children and so on. And this is what is the foundation of our national tragedy.
Mm-hmm. So it starts in the home in terms of parents.
It starts in the home. It starts with our irresponsible sexual behavior. We must correct our irresponsible sexual behavior. A man can say, I have a child in Charlottesville, I have one in Beetham, I have one in Mason Hall, and I have two in Mount Pleasant, and I can walk around and show like a macho man. But when that child comes home from school, and there need to be a father input into that situation, he's not present. And so these children are left on their own. Some of them torment other children in school, and some of them, they are caught up with the police at an early age. Let me just continue here. If you go to many of our schools, the next generation of gangsters are before your very eyes. In our schools, we're supposed to be a place of learning, education. The next generation of gangsters are before our very eyes. And not so long, we had on the TV a young man in a company uniform. It is alleged, and let me say alleged, he may be involved with a gang. And that, if I heard correctly, he was well known to the police. All this is happening with the parents of these children totally disconnect from their parental responsibilities. They are left to be adopted by the gangs, the drug dealers, and other groups.
So let me just interject, right? Especially the last part where you said the parents are disconnected and the children are left alone to be influenced by the outside world.
By the outside
right?
world, yeah.
What are some of the causes, in your opinion, that that causes the parent to be disconnected from the child and not knowing what is happening with the child and allowing external influences to come in?
Well, it was mentioned earlier. So many children mean you have too much children that you can handle, and there is no number to it. So that
what about situations where there's just one child in the home? Can you still put that same principle to the situation? Because what you're saying is that this woman has too many children, so she can't manage them. That's what you're saying. What about the instance where there's only one child in the home? Is it the same situation?
Too many does not come with number. Too many comes with what you cannot manage. So a person having 10 children does not mean that they have too much children. You could have one and you have too much because you are not training that child. The amount of delinquent children you have here, and the parent only have one child. I know a number of them.
Is there an institution where parents learn how to parent a child?
Well, we get into that. You're taking away this.
Well, we have to get into the conversation.
Yes,
because
well, listen
we
me
have
carefully.
to get down into the conversation.
This is what the government should be doing. They should institute programs that will get into people's homes to have a discussion with them. And you cannot say this cannot happen, because very soon you will see groups of people dressed in all colored jerseys representing all different political parties going to homes and telling them to vote for them. I was in Kokorit in 1976, in the 70s, and I was there. And Kokorit, I'm not being political here, but I'm just sharing my experience, is a PNM stronghold. I was by my sister. She almost put me out.
Right.
But hold on just now. And when people went to the homes, you hear people hit their hat on the ground and say, they will vote for this party until I die. This means that the people are convincible. We need to get to them.
Right. So you spoke so far about the facilitation part of it, right? Saying that you started off by saying when somebody's arrested, they go through the system, they come back out, they come out on bail, they wait for a long period before they are charged, before they go before the magistrate. Now let's get into the prevention part of it. Let's talk about the prevention aspect of it, so that we can understand the difference between facilitation and prevention. So we have to get into it now. We have to get into the prevention part.
Are we running out of time?
So we have to get into the prevention part of the conversation.
There's much here, there's much here.
We'd have to plan another time when there's so much more time we can talk about this. But let's get into the actual, because we understand now what you mean by facilitation. We're talking about the system, right? That allows for, it's not really as robust as in your opinion. Right. So let's talk now about prevention.
Let me make this last point. So in this entity provides a stream of new lawbreakers into the criminal world. And these new lawbreakers here that come into the criminal world are more than the police can handle. So the police is always in arrears and will always be in arrears because the criminals are too much. So when you hear the Minister of National Security and the Commissioner of Police says that, well, we are going to confront the criminals and we are going to take the fight to them, that is equivalent to Monday night mass. I was born in the middle of the night, and before dawn, I killed 1,000 men and walk away. Rubber talk. It's like you're rowing a boat 2 miles up a stream that is going down 10 miles per hour, and you are rowing 2 miles up a stream and say that you will reach the top of the stream. But let me not, let me get to what you want me to get to the point, if you're ready. Let me talk about prevention, because you probably want to get into that quickly.
Definitely.
Prevention. Long before a child is conceived, there should be a plan in place by the parents for the care and future of that child. Therefore, pregnancy should never be by carelessness. The plan must include health care and education, and where there is no plan and there is conception, there must be a plan. If the child is to become a success, the burden of parenthood cannot be avoided nor neglected. Parental guidance forms the foundation of the child's future, and it is important that every parent approach this role with commitment and with seriousness and responsibility. Let me just jump forward into something here. So, even apart from crime, a lot of matters in the domain could be corrected long before they become, too bad. For example, you may have a hospital where there is carelessness by doctors or a doctor. Somebody sues the hospital and the doctor may amputate a wrong leg, and they say, you sue them and you get your $500,000 but the problem is not solved. This problem has to be solved by how you train your children. So you give your son 5 years old or 6 years old the car to wash. You know he cannot wash the car properly, but you monitor him, and when the car is completed washing, you say, did you put in back the spare tire? No. Did you put in back the spanner? No. And you make sure that he does these things, because what is going to happen, he might become a doctor in the hospital. He's bright, but he's careless. And in that respect, he may tag the wrong leg for amputation, and that these are some of the things that we do in preventing crime. I'm so frustrated by the time you say that the time is out. Another concern again too, because of the stream of activities of criminal behavior coming into the system. You have a system with all these women producing all these children who have produced them, because this started many years ago. So Trinidad is littered with these children, making havoc all about the place. And so every criminal you arrest, the stream puts another 300 into the system. This is overwhelming to the police.
But we want to talk about the prevention part. You started talking about prevention, but you come back to that. So what I want to get to, because what is important to all of us is the prevention. How do we prevent it from happening? Because instead of arresting people, let us create a society where
that prevents.
Correct.
Because you spend, but let me go here to this one. You spend $30,000 to maintain a prisoner, maybe between 20 and 30. Let's put 25 for a general stopper. So you spend $25,000 in maintain a prisoner in the jail, but you can't find $6,000 a month to employ him. So we see there an ignorance to finance and public expenditure. If a lot of this money is spent on the other side of these people in prevention, you will have less crime in this country. This thing could be fixed, but there must be a program in place to deal with crime prevention. For example, you have your child is at home and he comes to you and tells you, well, Mommy, I have seen Mr. Harry's pump city or Mr. Johnson pump city. I peep into his yard and see his pump city. You look into Mr. and he hasn't given me any I've asked him. And then some of the parents will say, Mr. Johnson is a wicked man. When you tell your child that Mr. Johnson is a wicked man for not giving him the pump city, you have completed the first step of your child being a thief and half a step for him to be a murderer.
I understand that. And, I agree with you in terms of when you said programs need to be put in place. And I believe as if agencies are implementing programs.
They're too slow with the program.
There might be, but remember, things take time. Right, it takes time, but once you make that step in the right direction and you consistently continue, then it can be done. The prevention of crime, in my opinion, I could be wrong because I'm not an expert here, but prevention of crime will not be an automatic situation. We will not wake up tomorrow and realize, oh goodness, there's no crime in Tobago. Praise the Lord. That is not how it happens. So there's a process. So the programs you're talking about, that's welcome. It definitely is a welcomed idea, and we will, continue to campaign for corporate Tobago. We will campaign for all, collaborations with different agencies to come forward and provide programs to attract young people, to keep them off the streets, to provide that measure of support to parents and communities where we have children who might be troubled, who might come from a home where there's only a mother or
a person.
Teachers,
and they need special teachers.
Those are the things I'm sure are part of conversations in public spaces. So that type of, types of programs can be built out to aid in the prevention of crime as we move forward. Unfortunately, Mr. Philip,
I just want to make this
allow
me to make this last point. Thank you.
Sure.
If we do not have to wait on a government program, a parent in a house with children do not have to wait on a government program to start training their children. We listened on the TV some months ago, and a young girl, a daughter, was calling her mother, so-and-so, obscene language, come and see, deal with this teacher. So let me make this last point. I don't want you to tell me don't come. So let me make this last point. If nothing is done hurriedly and aggressively to address this crime problem, you know what will happen? We will need to have a police officer by every citizen to make sure they don't break the law. And it will advance into where we will need a police officer to stand up by every police officer to make sure the police don't break the law, because the police comes from the same society. Some of the women, children are in the police service. And if we don't do that, this country will continue to head in a direction of collapse mode.
Well,
thank you very much.
Mr. Philip, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and I do hope that we do not end up in that situation. I am more hopeful right now, and I do believe that things are being put in place. I do believe that agencies are coming together. I believe all the stakeholders have realized that we are possibly in a crisis and that things are being implemented. Might not be at your pace. It might not be at your pace, but things are happening. Ladies and gentlemen.
It's nice to think so, but when the children of Israel are praying to the Lord, Isaiah told them, you're wasting your, and the Lord can't hear you because you're wasting your time. You're doing all the things you shouldn't do, and you're going to prayers for help. Prayers and day of marching will not help us in this country here.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip. We've been speaking with Mr. Caleb Philip, a concerned citizen as it relates to crime here in Trinidad and Tobago, speaking about from facilitation to prevention. We do have to go for a short break before we continue conversations in studio this morning. And as we go, we invite you to help us. Share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.
You can now get whatever you need whenever you need it anywhere in Tobago with Tobago. Your meals, medication, groceries, and shopping all delivered directly to you. No more hassle, no more stress. Get the Tobago app today on Google Play or Apple App Store.
That's TAPPOGO, and let us deliver to you.
Check our website at www.tapogo.app or call the experts at 494-TOGO and 484-4746. Tobago. Relax. We will get it to you. Tobago's at your service.
Tobago Glass Supplies has been a leading name for over 37 years in the glass and aluminum market in Tobago. We provide an extensive range of high-quality, innovative aluminum and glass products for commercial and residential use. Competitive prices with superior and professional services by committed employees who are guided by rigid quality standards. Tobago Glass Supplies specializes in the manufacture and installation of glass and aluminum products that are essential to today's homeowners and the business environment. We are engaged in marketing, sales, and installation of a variety of products. These ranges from windows and doors to necessities such as mirrors for homes and vehicles, designed and manufactured in-house or imported.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Assemblyman Duke.
You know, it's the same thing as in.
No. Have a seat, Assemblyman Baines. Let's set the tone for the rest of the year, please. Assemblyman Duke. Assemblyman Duke, you are addressing your colleagues. This is an August chamber, and I won't allow that. I won't allow that. I won't allow that. Officer, can you please escort him out? Can you please escort him out of this house, please? Kindly escort him out of this house, please.
I am a
Officers, please escort him out of this house.
Because I elected to be in this house. But what was the man who come here? What was the... You tell me understand what is the right.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Tobago Updates Television. We continue conversations this morning in studio, and as you are aware, you're viewing a clip there of an incident that took place in the House on Thursday at the plenary sitting. In studio with us this morning is a former presiding officer, Dr. Denise Soyafat Angus, to give her opinion on the matter, especially having the experience of presiding officer, and talking us through what transpired, the do's, the don'ts, what should have happened, what could have happened, and what should not have had happened. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Dana. Good morning, Tobago and Trinidad and the rest of the world, wherever you're listening.
Right. We're going to get straight into the conversation, right? And just last week when this incident took place, when we came back on set, one of the things we mentioned is that I believe that a robust public education drive should be taking place, or a person should have a personal interest in understanding what the standing orders are, what are the do's and don'ts, so that we could form our own opinions instead of taking sides and saying, well, maybe she was right or he was right or we don't know. So I'm going to start there. We definitely need to have the information so that we can make our independent choices and not be influenced by emotions. And now we have you here in studio with us this morning as a former presiding officer, of course, looking on from on the outside and seeing what transpired. In your opinion, how should this matter have been dealt with? Was it dealt with correctly, or is there another approach that should have been taken? Because we heard from the Assemblyman Watson Duke in his press conference the following day about the situation. So where do you stand where this is concerned?
Well, the issue is not where I stand, but where do the standing orders stand? And the standing orders are clear. Whilst the presiding officer has control and has the responsibility to control the house so that you can have smooth sittings of the house, she does not have the authority to call the police officer and put them out of the house without having a member of the house move a motion to have that member taken out, whether it is due to disorderly conduct or disruptive or persisting in irrelevance, whatever it is, a member in the house should have moved a motion before the presiding officer could go further to say, the motion has been moved, please leave, or police, please, escort him out of the house.
All right, so that is a very clear explanation there as to what should have happened. But let me just ask this here, as you were explaining this to me, it came to mind. In a situation where a member becomes aggressively disruptive and there isn't time for another member to move a motion, what does the presiding officer do? Does he or she, do they still have to wait for the member to move a motion? Let's say a member becomes very aggressive, very rude, very disorderly. Does the presiding officer still sit and wait for another member to move a motion, or how is that situation managed? Based on the standing order?
She can suspend the house.
Okay.
She has the authority to immediately suspend the house for an emergency, right? Which you suspended the house, and then they could have gone to, she leaves, and any other member or police, if they're quite disruptive, then the police could say, well, this is becoming violent or, at risk to other members, and they can step in of their own. But she did not have the authority to direct the police officer as she did.
All right.
So, she should have suspended the house.
And in this case, the member who was asked to leave or asked to be escorted by the police, is there any type of action that member can take in this situation, or any member at all?
Well, the member can write to have your presiding officer looked into. He can write to the house requesting to send a motion of no confidence in the presiding officer. But I think basically that is where he would have to go with it. But I believe that any presiding officer recognizing that there was such a breach in the standing order ought to come back to the house and apologize. Because she didn't just take away powers from Assemblyman Duke. She took away the powers from the whole house. She disrespected the whole house.
Disrespect is a strong term, but I understand.
It is, because when you take upon yourself powers that the house has, but you have pretty much pushed them out of the way and say, okay, I'm taking over, and you directed the police, you disrespected the whole house, because they were the ones to move the motion to say, have Mr. Duke leave or have him suspended or whatever. So she did not allow them to do their work. She took on the powers of the house.
All right. So how this situation unfolded based on what we saw from the video, what would have been, had you been the presiding officer at that point in time, what would have been your approach? Would you have waited for a member to move a motion? Would you have suspended, or would you have warned the member again? What would have been your approach?
The first thing she needed to do was stand up. She didn't stand. She proceeded to sit and direct orders to Mr. Duke. So she didn't stand and say, I am on my feet, Mr. Duke. I am on my feet, which is the first thing that you do. Okay? So you stand and you attempt to work with the member and say, member, could you please adhere to the house rules? If you have a question on clarity, an issue, are you requesting to rise on a point of order? Yes? So you attempt in every way with your tone also to calm the member on the other side and to give the member the opportunity to say, hey, what do you want to say? Do you want to stand on a point of order? And then you hear how that person would carry on, but you attempt to diffuse it in every other way so that it doesn't get to that point. If you are failing in that regard, while on your feet, you say, okay, members, I I have attempted to work with the member here, and he is not, conducting himself in the way in which we expect in this house, I would request that one of you move a motion so that we can have the member leave and continue with the proceedings of the house.
Sometimes we know what we're supposed to do. Sometimes we understand our roles and responsibilities and functions. And I'm not siding with anyone where this is concerned. I'm just putting this in the public space because I like to have balance and I like to approach things from all angles. So we know what we're supposed to do. We're professionals, or we trained, or we have the information that we're supposed to have. But there's a human element, right? How do you manage the human element in this type of scenario? Because sometimes it can become overwhelming, right? I'm saying I'm not on anybody's side where this is concerned. What I want to get to is how do we strike a balance? Let's say, for instance, I remember last year we were talking about are politicians trained in their specific fields? Are they trained? Are they professionals? Are they qualified? Remember, these are average citizens putting themselves up for service. And so they don't necessarily have the type of training. And so the human part of them will come forward when situations are overwhelming or situations are too much or unbearable. Is it that there should be a measure of additional training to provide a support in terms of how do you deal with a situation where you know what you're supposed to do? Perhaps you might not remember at that point in time and you responded to the situation rather than to the protocol of the whole thing.
I like that you talk about training because as a presiding officer, when I went into office, I sat numerous hours, days, weeks, studying the standing orders, studying the examples that are given in some of the books related to the standing orders, and also went to Trinidad in the parliament for training, brought the parliament to Tobago for training of the assembly members and the clerks and everyone. And we also traveled, for training internationally. So training is not something I took lightly, and at every turn, I would always review. I mean, my standing orders book that I had personally had highlights, stickers, different things. So you become one with it because you are in charge. You have to know your powers. You have to know the limitation of your powers. And when you have it, you understand it like the front and the back of your hand, you will then be able to go in there and have the temperance needed to deal with a house. Okay? And to deal with it in a manner such that you have control because you've studied it in and out. Being a presided officer is not an easy thing, It may look simple, but you have a whole different set of rules that you have to study. And sometimes it's even harder than some of the other, secretaries or whoever, because you have to study. You literally have to study while you're in there and make sure, that's if you want to be a good presiding officer.
And not just study, based on what you're saying, not just study, but you have to be able to pull to memory what you have studied in an instant.
Absolutely.
You have to be able to pull,
Absolutely.
Whereas with another portfolio, you can refer to, you can go back to something, you could read something, you could check, double check. But while you're sitting in that seat, and I like how you said that it is not easy.
No,
because you have to at all times remember, and there must be challenges. In every portfolio that you hold, there are challenges. I am certain, and so here we are now. So this situation has happened. You mentioned that the presiding officer now should apologize to the house.
Yeah.
In moving forward.
Yes.
Failing that, then what? We continue.
I can't understand when you say failing that. Because, you have breached the standing orders. You have made a gross error. And therefore, you just need to come back to the house and apologize for what you've been able to do, that breach that is so glaring in the standing orders itself. And I think that there has to be discussions between and clearly there are no discussions being taken around the table, because you heard of the committees that are not functioning. Okay? So the presiding officer is supposed to be in charge of the standing orders committee. I don't know if she'll call a committee meeting now that the standing orders, didn't work in her favor, or she didn't work according to them. But those have not functioned in 3 years. You have a House committee, which is led by the leader of Assembly Business, does not appear to have functioned in 3 years. And that is where the House, and the comfort of the House and how the House operates, the leader of Assembly Business is supposed to have a meeting with members of the House on all sides to ensure that the House is functioning to their liking. And also the Public Accounts Committee has not been functioning, which is a committee where you deal with accountability. So it tells you that after 3 years, there's been no learning in the House. There's been no, there's a total breakdown in how the legislature has been run. And I know in the first year, there were a number of instances where the presiding officer was brought into question. But gosh, man, this is our 3rd year. You have to demonstrate that you have at least learned something, that you're continuing to learn, and that is not being demonstrated or evidenced.
In closing, I want to ask this question. I know you said training is very, very important, and you invested a lot in training, whether it was right here in Tobago, whether you went to Trinidad or abroad, to get the measure of training that you needed when you held the position of presiding officer.
And also looking at clips of different parliaments and how these different scenarios are treated.
Right. So in your time as presiding officer, whenever a situation of this magnitude came up, what was your approach? Were you able to adequately and professionally, in accordance to the standing order, have every matter under control while you were the presiding officer?
Well, remember, I would have dealt with Mr. Duke when I was there, and I didn't have a situation such as this. You never let it escalate to something such as this.
This situation, it didn't have a creeper to get to this, though. It didn't build up to this, it just exploded. So when you say you didn't have a situation where this happened, you didn't allow it to happen to get to this, suggests that there might have been smaller instances before it got to this. But in this situation, there wasn't a creeper.
But remember, if you looked at what the first thing the presiding officer said is, let us set the stage for this year. It was in a very aggressive tone. It was in a very challenging tone. It was not, I'm rising to my order in the House, and she would rise and she say, Mr. Duke, you know the standing orders. Do you have a point of order to stand on if you want to say something or ask a question? None of that was done. So as someone who holds the power, you don't go out wielding your power from the start. You attempt. Everyone knows Mr. Duke. Everyone knows who Assemblyman Duke is. Wherever he can steal the show, he will steal the show. You just don't become his puppet in helping him to steal the show. And so what you do is make sure you stand up. You use your standing orders to ask him, do you have a point of order? But you do it in such a voice that it is calming and not adversarial. Once you get up into an adversarial role from the start, there's no coming back from it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Angus, for coming this morning and sharing, bringing clarity to the standing order there, and for us to have a better understanding. And I do want to encourage all of Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, to familiarize yourself with the standing orders. As I said earlier, that you can form your independent opinion on matters as it relates to the house, the governance of Tobago, so that we will not be taking sides based on emotion, so we'll understand what is happening there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we end the morning show on Tobago Updates Television, but it's not where we end our programming. We head on over to GMT, which is Good Morning Tobago, and we continue the Beneath the Surface series. So stay with us this morning as we continue those conversations, and as we go, we invite you to help us. Share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.
Inventor of the U-Dazzle fashion ruler, Mrs. Rona Eastman Jack, is Tobago's foremost authority on intellectual property rights. She is sharing the benefit of her experience with Roxborough secondary students.
One of the greatest benefits is licensing my product to a company in Denmark. And if I didn't have the protection for it, he would not have taken it. So, and then I have the benefit of now looking to license in the United States. And even with my trademark, that's one of intellectual property rights. My trademark now is in multiple countries because of the Madrid Protocol. You have to have intellectual property, you have to have proof of ownership. And if you don't have proof of ownership, they will not take your product to license or sell it as an invention, because you could be an infringement on somebody else's own, and they don't want that. The companies that we license to don't want that problem.
It was inspiring to me that I got to meet one of an inventors from my country. So it was inspiring for me.
This year's theme is Women and IP, Accelerating Innovation and Creativity.
If you have it protected, then you skip the having to prove yourself, and then you would be able to say, no, I have my trademark for this. I have an industrial design. I have a pattern. I have my poems, or my book is copyright protected because it's original work. Your pictures are original. You know, you would be able to have those particular rights.
April 26th is World Intellectual Property Rights Day. Lectures were conducted at Roxborough Secondary School and Goodwood High School to mark the occasion.
That was a production of the Department of Information, Office of the Chief Secretary, Tobago House of Assembly.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the skies. I say thanks for favor, to wake up and hear me neighbor. 60,000 people strong, and the vibes is never wrong. We are beauty, we are power, we are people in the sun. We are beaches, we are rivers, we are melanated ones. We special and there is no denying. Tobago is
And yes, viewers, we are easing into Good Morning Tobago. And if you didn't know by now, you should know that we are doing the Beneath the Surface series right here on Tobago Updates, a series where we are peeling back the layers to politicians to really find out what goes into governing the island of Tobago. For those of you new to the Updates family, for those of you new to this space, you don't know me from a place, you don't know this space from nowhere. My name is Luke James Trim, and I'm proud to be your host for this morning's session. I'm also joined by
Chanel, Felix, guys. You know, whenever you see me sitting here, it's because we're about to have those conversations that you want to have while I ask the questions that you want asked. And as my co-host said this morning, we are continuing our Beneath the Surface series. And this morning is one like all others. We are asking the tough questions. And this morning in the hot seat, we have Assemblyman Zuisha Hackett. Good morning.
Good
and welcome.
morning. Good morning, Miss Felix. Good morning, Mr. James.
Good morning.
Good morning, Tobago. Happy New Year, because it's my first time on the air for the new year 2025. So Happy New Year, Tobago.
Right. Well, I mean, we always welcome you here. And this morning we are continuing the series. And I'm guessing that you saw some of your colleagues
Yes, I
on
did. And what I
before.
missed live, I went back and I looked at, because I'm so proud of my colleagues. That's
Excellent.
been a really challenging
And so
2
you
years.
would know that we really started off by trying to get to know some of you a bit. And you are no stranger to Tobago, and neither are you any stranger to the Tobago Updates audience.
Yes.
But this morning, for those persons who are not familiar with your upbringing and what brought you into the political sphere, let them know.
Wow. So, born and raised Bethesda Trace, Plymouth. Actually, when the electoral district split into Bethesda, Leketo, and Plymouth Blackrock, I was confused because I always knew Bethesda as being a subset of the larger community of Plymouth. But born and raised there, I actually attended Smithfield Kindergarten for 1 year, and then Sunbeam Kindergarten there in Plymouth. We called it Pastor Mac, fondly called that. And then I went on to the Plymouth Anglican Primary School. I did my common entrance, and yes, I'm that old, common entrance, and passed on to the Bishop's High School. I spent 7 years there. Fun fact, I actually wanted to go to Signal Hill for sixth form because my subject alignment was more in tandem with what was offered there. But I was into instruments at Bishop's High School, and Mr. Moore and Miss Armstrong had invested so much into me. And the year I was going over to sixth form, it was a music festival year. And so I played several instruments, and so I had to remain at Bishop's High School. So I eventually spent 7 years there. And see House, good morning. School celebrating 100 years this year, and so we're so proud of the Bishop's High School legacy. I then went on immediately to, I worked at Cocoa Reef for 1 year, and I got some really good customer service training there. And then I went on to BWIA, it was called at that time. I spent a couple of months, and then Agnes Murray Thomas, my former English teacher, saw me one day at the airport and said, you need to get into teaching. It has always been your life dream. It's good that you got the experience out there, but get into teaching. And so at 19 years old, I started teaching at what was called Scarborough Secondary Center, which eventually morphed into what is now called the Goodwood Secondary School. And so I spent 3 years there, and then I went off to university. I did a double major, linguistics and literature with education, a minor in education. I began a master's in an MPhil in linguistics, and then I was advised, to be a teacher, what you really need is a postgraduate diploma in education. You could go all the way up to PhD. You wouldn't have that upward mobility in the teaching fraternity if you don't have a DPED. So I paused, got that out of the way, had some challenges with it because the program I did, there was actually a minor, as I said, in education. And so because I was the second cohort of students, the University of the West Indies was still trying to fine tune what that meant in the broader picture of academics. And so after that, I started a master's in government, and then found another that I was more interested in called strategic leadership and innovation, which I'm on the home stretch of. You know how it is when you're working and going to school. But I have several postgraduate certificates in government, in education, in linguistics, in leadership,
How does a teacher go from teaching to being in politics?
Oh my God. So we should ask the chief secretary that. So in around 2016, after I had my second daughter, And I started experiencing more than usual challenges as a contracted employee, and we are classified as educators in the Tobago space. I was like, listen, we need to be able to push the policies in a particular direction, and we weren't getting that passion and that enthusiasm and even the political will from those in authority. And so now Chief Secretary and myself, we led a charge of a group of contracted teachers into demanding fair and equitable service from the Tobago House of Assembly. And that came about because I was having some challenges with my maternity leave, being on contract, you know. And so we started exploring our avenues or legal avenues. And at that point in time, Fali, so lovingly called at that point in time, not the honorable and all of that, decided that he would get into the politics. It has always been a lifelong goal of his. Never my interest, but of course, being one of his best friends, I told him, wherever you go, I'm going to support you fully. And so he entered the fold and I remember the day clearly, the 19th of November, 2016. He had his first political speech up there at Lucyville Speyside as a candidate for the Progressive Democratic Patriots, which he went on to win. I was his campaign manager, and I told him, you know, I'll support him every step of the way. And so by the time we got to 2020, right after the general elections of 2020, he asked me to consider. Now, before that, mind you, in 2017, that 2017 election, Mr. Duke had also approached me to contest the Plymouth Golden Lane seat. When he approached me, I was a new mother. My daughter was probably only 3 months old. And I found it was not the best time. And I was not even considering that because I saw all the negative elements surrounding the politics of the day. And I just saw myself as being, you know, an activist, very vocal, very passionate, and thinking that you don't have to be in the forefront or actually sitting at governance to make a difference. But the frustration of seeing who, you know, was actually at the fore, and the fact that we were going through the same routine over and over again, by the time now Chief Secretary approached me in 2020, right after that general election, and it was still called Plymouth Golden Lane at that time. I went back to my community because I no longer live in that Plymouth Golden Lane area. I went back to my community, and after getting full support, because you have to understand that it's not you making a decision, you're not voting for yourself. All I'm afforded is one vote for myself. If the community is not, you know, backing you, is not supportive, is not going to give you that, and of course, after having a conversation with God, because you also have to ensure that, you know, you're in that right place to make such a tough decision that is ultimately going to affect your family life, your educational pursuits, your goals, if it was not your career, the career path you had for yourself. And so after I felt as if I had solid enough support from that community, I decided to make that step. And oh my God, 2 steps in 1 year, because moving from area representative of Plymouth Golden Lane to then area representative of Bethesda Leketo in the same year, you know, it was a real challenge. We had a lot of getting used to. We didn't have the opportunity to even go to the house in that 6-6 deadlock period. So we didn't have the practice. We had to learn the standing orders, you know, on our own. And so it was the most challenging period, moving from teacher to area representative in a 6-6 period, so not getting that governance experience, and then moving straight into governance, becoming a secretary of the very division that I was an employee of, and being able to advocate for some of the changes directly that we saw being necessary to changing the landscape of governance, say, on the island of Tobago.
Excellent,
Yeah.
Sakit. And I want you to talk to me about navigating through the challenges of the dark side of politics,
Oh my
because,
gosh.
you know, speaking with some of your colleagues, most of them would have spoken about how the attacks are coming and how they navigate, especially having a family.
Yes.
And it takes me back to when that whole audio gate thing had happened, and
Yeah.
you were one of the main faces of that issue.
Yeah.
But I want you to talk to us about navigating that, not as secretary, not as
Yeah.
assemblyman, but
As Zorisha Hackett.
as Zori, and a mother,
Zia Hackett.
and a mother, because I can only imagine, like
Yeah.
we touched on with Mr. Kerr, is that you have children going to
Of
school,
course.
and they may be exposed to people who may not support you politically.
Right.
When you know your parents speaking negatively, the children now come to
Yes.
school and repeat what the parents are saying.
Right.
So how did you navigate that as a mother?
Listen to me, the toughest period ever So I have an 18-year-old daughter. She was about 15 going on 16 when I got into this, right? And the thing about it is an 8-year-old and an 18-year-old, 10 years apart. The thing about it is, so the 8-year-old, it was very easy for me to break down things to her. She's not exposed to social media. At that point in time, it was the COVID period, so she was not physically in a school space or anything. You know, but you see that now 18-year-old, it was the most difficult period ever because she saw her mother as her role model. And then you're going to school and you're hearing all these things, even outside of Audio Gate. In general, she felt as if she had to be a part of the journey with me, although she didn't, you know, see herself as being a part of the journey. And she went through several challenges, several moments of depression, moments of, mommy, why did you get involved in this? Because now I am actually facing the backlash as well. We had all the fake profiles, even calling her out as a minor in the midst of it all. And she told me, mommy, at the end of fifth form, I am not staying in Tobago. I don't want to. I love you, but it's so much for me as a teenager to have to endure. And I'm there trying to become my own person and so on. But, you know, I'm being identified as your daughter. And so your wins are my wins. But, you know, whenever you face a backlash, me, and I mean, it's so unfair for a minor to also have to treat with that, you know. She excelled at the CSEC and she decided to give it one more chance. She came back and she went off to sixth form at Signal Hill. And after that year, and she did well as well at Signal Hill, she told me, mommy, I think I need a change in environment. So my daughter currently does not live in Tobago, that older daughter. It has been a real challenge. Now the house is empty because grandmother takes care of the younger one because you know how it goes. On any given point in time, my schedule changes in a heartbeat. Sometimes I'm getting home after 10, 11 in the night. Sometimes midnight meets me at the desk signing off files. And then now I am one of the 2 secretaries without an assistant secretary, Secretary of Finance and myself. We don't have assistant secretary. So we're taking that load of the division on our own. We're bearing that burden alone. And so your family life is greatly affected. No one can deny the fact that active public life forces you to sacrifice so much of your family life, you know. My father was extremely ill recently. And, you know, I had to take some time out to see about him. He lives with me now. And, you know, just putting your all into it is, makes you sacrifice other elements of your life. And I think it's the burden we bear as public figures. The fact that I hear a lot of people talking about it, the glamour, it looks so glamorous and so on. And I'm not complaining about this because I think it was a calling. I think it was a blessing too. And it is indeed a privilege to serve in this capacity. But I want anyone looking on at us and at previous administrations to understand that it comes with a lot of sacrifice.
Right. And even as you indicated that you spent a lot of time this year, well, last year as well, taking care of your dad, there are times that persons may not have seen you physically at the division and thinking to themselves, well, wait, we haven't
Well, if you're not, so let's pause there. If you're not seeing me physically at the division, it's because I'm in my district. And let me tell you, for me, being an area representative comes first. A division has an administrator, there's a technical advisor or 2 in some divisions, and there are technocrats that would head every unit. All right? In that 6-6 period, for instance, where you had some holdover secretaries, the divisions didn't shut down. You had secretaries holding down 2 and 3 divisions, they didn't shut down. Yeah? If we go on a retreat, the division's doors don't close. If a secretary travels, the business of the division continues. And so when I'm not in my division, more than likely I'm in my district. And that's the thing, When we walked into our doors, that first day for me would have been probably the 13th of December, 2021. And I made a schedule of how I'm going to spend my time as area representative / secretary. And as I said, you're area representative first. If you are not elected into office, then you can be appointed into the executive council. And so I worked my work week in a particular way where 50% of my time would have been spent in my district, 50% in the division, and of course you have 1 day. So 2 days, and that 1 day for executive council. And in a short period of time, I had to realize, you know, it can't work like that. There are some days when your district would require more of you, and there are some days when your division would require more of you. And so that schedule I made for myself had to be quickly shelved, because if the secretary's signature doesn't go on particular documents, it's stalled right there in the secretary's office. Yeah? Another thing about this secretary, I am not sitting and pushing paper all day and not on the field. And in my particular field, the schools are my field. Also, the Division of Education is responsible for libraries, and we have 3 such libraries on the island. We also have 2 special purpose companies under purview, THTI and TITL. And so if you have a secretary in the division 8 to 4, Monday to Friday, then a lot of the actual work, which requires you moving on the ground, your ground in the divisional perspective, and seeing what's happening in your schools, what's happening with your teachers, highlighting and showcasing the achievements of the divisions. And I believe strongly in marketing and PR. And I think this administration, we have done an excellent job at that, but there's a lot more to be desired as it relates to marketing and showcasing our achievements. And I have made it my duty, right, without fair contradiction, to highlight and showcase our achievements. I know sometimes you always get that, you're showing something that you should be doing anyway as secretary. Yeah. Our role as public figures is to be accountable to the people. And so we must find a way to demonstrate to the people who have placed us in this particular position with a specific mandate that we are getting the job done.
And
so
Ms. Sackett, before you continue, Ms. Sackett, while we're still on the wave of the division, one of your division's goal was inclusive education by 2024. Yes. So talk to us a bit about that, any progress we have seen.
Wow, so we're just shifting gears quickly here. Right. So inclusive education for some persons is, okay, we have persons who are differently abled or persons along a particular spectrum, and so we build a special institution for them. Okay. That is not inclusive education for me. You know what inclusive education is? That if I'm a child that has a challenge, either psychologically or physically, I can be integrated into the regular school system. Okay. So we have some challenges with the infrastructure of some of our schools. And for the most part, there are particular schools, if you, for instance, at the end of the SCA process, you're transitioning over to secondary schools, there are few schools that if you have a physical disability, you would not be able to attend because you may not be able to move around on the plant. There's going to be mobility issues. But we have quite a few. The layout affords that. Scarborough Secondary School, for the most part, Harmon School of SDA for the most part. And so what we have been doing with about 6 or 7 of our primary schools, about 8 of our 12 ECCEs, and these 2 secondary schools for the most part, because then you still have to respect the option of the parent and child. And so we try our very best, if those are not the 2 schools, that we can give them the opportunity. It's just that we may have to move entire classrooms and teaching structures around the child. But for the most part, we have spent time upgrading these facilities to ensure that a student who has a challenge can attend these schools with limited mobility issues. And so, again, for me, inclusive education means actually being able to integrate students with particular disabilities or challenges into the actual school system, what we have here, and enhancing these facilities to be able to accommodate them. Separate from that, we have a challenge where for the last few decades or so, both Happy Haven and the School for the Deaf, Speech and Language Impaired have been having infrastructural challenges there. We have, for instance, the School for the Deaf sharing a compound with the Bonaccord Government Primary School. And then we have Happy Haven. We've spent a lot renovating and so on, but it's not the most optimal, or it's not the most suitable environment, especially in a technologically advanced world, and all the accommodations being made in that first world environment for students who are mentally or physically challenged. Yeah. And so we have spent some time advocating strongly for us to have a special school to accommodate those. But for the most part, if they're able to be integrated into the regular school scenario, that we will have that integration. So yes, we want, as one of the priority projects of the Division of Education, is to finally clear that land. It's adjacent to the school, the Happy Haven School up there at Signal Hill, to clear that land and prepare it for construction.
Okay.
Construction is not a drop in the bucket, Luke, and as you would appreciate, with so many priority projects across the entire assembly, that is going to be one of the projects that, we'll have to have some cutbacks and make some solid investments in, but we have to start the project. And so we've been charged with that responsibility of preparation works for that school. Secretary of Finance has also pledged to me her commitment to such a vision because we see the need for it. But I want to reiterate on the fact that inclusion for me means being integrated into the regular school system.
Understood.
Yeah?
All right, viewers, so we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Just remember to share the live, share the live, share the live.
Want to get better? Where to start? What kind of exercise to do? What to eat? How to get restful sleep? Need a doctor to search for root cause? Look no further. Come to Majuba Hill Lifestyle Center Foundation at our Wellness Center in Goodwood, or Food Hub in Darrow Springs, Scarborough, or Doctor's Office in Goodwood and Darrow Spring. Contact 49 Swift 4979 438.
It's a different type of thing down there. And we party till we drop down there. With a lot of pretty girls down there. Down in Tobago.
Good morning and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates, guys. We continue our Beneath the Surface series, and this morning we have been chatting with Assemblyman Zorisha Hackett. Good morning and welcome back.
Morning again.
Right, so one of the topics that have continued to be on the cards when we talk about education has been the Scarborough Secondary School.
Oh my gosh.
And you had a sub-turning for that school last year.
Yeah, to signify our intent to construct, yeah?
Yes. And we heard from the minority side that there was very little communication regarding that sub-turning with the Minister for Education. She would have indicated to them that the first time she saw it is when it was live on television.
The minority said that?
Yes.
Does the minority understand the tenets of Act 40 of 1996? So I don't, probably out of courtesy, but I don't have to report to the Minister of Education as it relates to construction of a school. Act 40 of 1996 under the 5th schedule, item 25 to be specific, gives the Tobago House of Assembly full remit over education inclusive of curriculum. And so if it's an invitation out of courtesy, I understand that, but I don't understand the demand of the secretary to, and even with that being a speaking point
in
as
regards
it relates
to the request to the central government for funding for the school. We know that I believe it was 500,000.
So we make requests to the central government through draft estimates in June every year. Does that mean for every project that the Tobago House of Assembly every project we embark on, that we have to send invitations to central government because that's where we're getting the allocation? I don't understand that claim. What I can say is that the Tobago House of Assembly is fully responsible for the construction of schools, both infrastructure and education, under the purview of the Tobago House of Assembly. And so what the central government should be focused on is honoring the commitment to fund. When I saw the allocation of $500,000 to Scarborough Secondary, when we got that budget statement on the 30th of September 2024, I was taken aback because $500,000 can't even prepare the space. And so the Caribbean Development Bank, upon us, assuming office, came to Tobago, and I walked several sites with the chief secretary, and after all the consultations we did with the school and all the stakeholders of Scarborough Secondary School, and prepared preliminary user brief and all this, work that we've put in as a Tobago House of Assembly, and being told, that we should not try going in the direction of attaining a loan from the CDB, and that the central government was committed to ensuring that we got the funding necessary. As a matter of fact, I want to jog Tobagonians' memory back to one of the last budget presentations of the People's National Movement before we went into that 2021 Tobago House of Assembly election. And Scarborough Secondary School was dangled like a carrot from a stick from then Secretary of Finance. And so to have Scarborough Secondary School always come up in or around an election period, it hurts me, because I as Secretary how much we've invested in Scarborough Secondary School in its current state, how much we've spent in school repair programs to ensure that while they remain down there on Old Government Farm Road extension, that they get the necessary upgrades and so on to ensure that we don't have challenges with that plant. But it cannot be that you're now making the challenge about us receiving an allocation to go ahead with the construction of that school being predicated on a minister receiving an invitation. And so I want us to stop playing the political games. It's either you allow us as an assembly to be able to borrow to build that school, or you honor your commitment of funding that school. That school, based on the user brief and the intentions we have, is supposed to be one of a smart school design, and one to be very advanced when compared to what secondary schools offer in this part of the Western Hemisphere. And so we had so many plans for what we wanted to see happen there, and to also use that as a template moving forward, because with population increase very soon, we're going to run short of the spaces available on the 9 secondary schools, or in the 9 secondary schools rather, on this island. And so the conversation should be one about honoring commitment and not spending time, articulating positions of who was invited and egos and all of that there. I want to see a new school built for Scarborough Secondary School, and I want the central government to honor their commitment. There is nothing else. No pleasantries or platitudes or anything. Let us get along with the business of the people. Former administration articulated very strongly about that position, spoke to it, dangled it like a carrot on a stick, spent a lot of time treating with land issues and where the school would be built. It was found that the property they allocated or they had put aside for the school was not suitable. The Tobago House of Assembly looked at its land stock, found a suitable property, and of course you want it to be in or around the Scarborough area to maintain or to retain that name. And so we were able to write on the opposite side, what we call Bacalet Park. The land is there, 27 or so acres put aside for the construction of the school. It's time for us to build the school, and that's all I'm interested in at the moment. Nothing else.
Understood. And
yes.
Where are you in the entire process right now?
Well, $500,000. We decided to go ahead, clear the property, have it fenced in and so on, but that's as much as we can do. And again, that speaks to autonomy, Chanel. And every time we end up, encountering a hurdle, an obstacle along our developmental trajectory as an assembly, it's because of that autonomy question. The fact that we have to sit and wait on a central government to either honor commitment or give us permission to be able to, stand with us if we go out there and try to get some financing, for that school. And it begs of a question of who really advocates for us in that 41-member House of Representatives. Because I would have expected MP for Tobago East or West in that conversation not to spend time talking about, and even the minority, talking about who was invited and who wasn't invited. That's the least of our issues. Who is advocating for us to hold the Minister of Finance accountable and hold him to account for that commitment he made to the Chief Secretary, who also served as a Secretary of Finance at that point in time. That is the direction I want the conversation to go in. And if it's not going in there, I will not be a part of that conversation. As a former teacher of Scarborough Secondary School, I spent almost 10 years there. I will continue to advocate strongly for the reconstruction of that plant. And that's as far as I would take any such conversation.
Understood, Ms. Hackett. And it's good you touched on so many points from, Scarborough Secondary always being subject to extensive commentary where infrastructure is concerned. I recall one of my good friends, the first time I met her, that's Miss Kaylee Lewis, was on TV6 News protesting.
Wow.
Protesting because of the
Council,
issue.
yes.
Protesting because of the issue at Scarborough Secondary School. And any young person in this space, they can tell you that, Scarborough Secondary School has always been at that issue. Infrastructure is a problem. According to Miss Lewis, just now you have to teach the students how to swim. And the mere fact that...
Let me tell you, Luke, as you're there, I was there for 10 years and we had to bring that perimeter fence in about 3 or 4 times. And that's just to speak to the rapid rate of erosion of that plant. And I know there were several conversations, that entire stretch of coastal space, from Coast Guard all the way down to Lambo. There's been several conversations in this space about retaining walls and everything that needs to happen in order to save that piece of infrastructure and the land that's there. But I mean, all the talks for decades, and we have to come in as a new administration and contend with that challenge. It just speaks to political will. So we have the talk, and you're very correct. It became a challenge where students protested at one point in time. We have the PT, a very active PT at that, always articulating the positions. We have a very powerful alumni association there as well that advocates strongly. The teachers, we have the challenges where the teachers themselves speak to, the day-to-day issues of that plant. I myself endured a injury on the plant. I fell on the plant, cracked tiles. Tiles are always moving, the land is shifting. And so it's, not for want of advocating for it. And so you're correct that we have students even getting into the conversations. And as I said before, spending time speaking about who was invited. I want central government to be able to honor their commitment so we can get the construction of this school off the ground.
And still on the topic of students getting involved in the conversation, island-wide, nation-wide, we understand that Tobago's autonomy has been one that is a very interesting conversation. And we understand that in order to get that engagement, in order for people to really understand the autonomy discussion, it starts at education, especially with our young people. As Secretary for Education, what can we expect to see rolling out from your division to really educate our youth about what autonomy means to the island, what is autonomy, and by extension, how constitutional reform works?
All right. So before we get into that, let me just spend some time just congratulating the presiding officer and the work she has been doing and the Assembly legislature have been doing in collaboration with the Division of Education as it relates to ensuring our young persons have a voice. And so through her annual Tobago House of Assembly Day debate, that Tobago Day debate, we see young persons getting into the conversations of the day and being very true to themselves in putting their voices out there and advocating for what we expect them to advocate for as the next leaders of this island. Through this whole vision of the Tobago-centric curriculum, and again, Act 40 of 1996 affords the Tobago House of Assembly the responsibility to even transform curriculum, even if it's divergent to what is in national scope, And so we have spent a lot of time really getting into how do we see a citizen of Tobago moving in this space and moving globally. And so we realize that it cannot be a one-size-fit-all copy and paste modality of education here on the island. And so we spent the last year and a half or so really getting into how do you expect that Tobago child to view the world and to view themselves as being a part of the larger global picture. And so that Tobago-centric curriculum, it wasn't just a buzzword. We knew it wouldn't happen overnight, and we also knew that one term would not be enough for curriculum transformation. I mean, after all, we have a climate where it's very exam-driven, and we have particular examinations that parents push that sense of status and your ability to excel as an individual on the exam-oriented model. And so we want students to be able to leave the primary, ECC, primary, secondary school system understanding the role they play as contributing, positive contributors to society. And so it comes right back to the autonomy question being a part of the overall Tobago-centric vision. And that Tobago-centric vision gives that child, or that student rather, the opportunity to play a role in even the governance structure. And so it's through that particular modality that we want to be able to give students the opportunity to understand the struggle. Where did it start? What's my role in this vision? And we have currently at the moment a book, and I don't know if you've been following the politics of the day, but you're seeing that the Chief Secretary has been spending quite a lot of time through this podcast educating Tobago, autocorrect and autofocus, yeah? And so we have had this committee that he's put together with Miss Ingrid Melville, attorney at law Ingrid Melville, Mr. Alan Richards, and even Dr. Winford James. And they have come up with some literature and a series of other strategies to ensure that we can integrate it into the same Tobago-centric curriculum, of which Dr. Winford James is also one of the committee members. And so we have a really beautiful piece of literature that is going to be given to every student from about standard 1 all the way up to secondary school, probably upper 6 or so, that breaks down that autonomy conversation to them in a way that it's going to be very palatable, and they're able to absorb and even question it further. Yeah. And so further than that, we will be making a call very soon to Tobagonians on island, in the Republic, in the diaspora, globally. Contribute to the literature, contribute to what we put into the book bags of our students. We have to reimagine education, and reimagining education would cause us as Tobagonians to even rewrite, how we view ourselves on a national level. And so the conversation must now be one where it's not just about a teacher going into a classroom and you're opening a math book because there's a math exam at the end of standard 5. But how do you incorporate every aspect of the education system into that pursuit of Tobago's quest for self-determination? So
Right.
yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, we are definitely going in that direction of, for the first time, really challenging what it means to be responsible for curriculum on the island.
And we want to touch a bit on what's happening at the district level now. You
Yes.
came in as a
Oh my
representative for Plymouth Bethesda.
Right, so it
and
was
then
Plymouth Golden Lane first,
Correct.
and then Bethesda Leketo is the current name of the electoral district.
Exactly. And so how were you able, and how are you able to continue to engage those persons that are part of the new district construction, specifically those in the Golden Lane area?
Right.
Because,
Yes.
persons often say you're a Plymouth girl. So how do you keep them engaged to the point where they don't feel
So like
left
Golden
behind?
Lane residents here, you say I'm a Plymouth girl, because they think I'm more Golden Lane girl probably now. But so my electoral district changed where one polling station was dropped off, right? So Plymouth is divided with a imaginary line through Jager's Hall. All right? And so Jager's Hall is where, if you're going easterly of Jager's Hall, is what we call lovingly and fondly Goat Rock, and what we call Freedom on the next side of Shelbourne Street. So that's where the boundary is. West of there is the electoral district of Assemblyman Niall George. And so my district goes from there all the way up to Woodlands Mariah. So I go from part of Plymouth, then I go into Leketo, then Golden Lane, and part of Mariah, Woodlands Mariah. And so because of how much we did as area representatives, even the 6 that didn't make it in that 6-6 deadlock, how much we did in that 11 months, our electoral districts expected so much of us. We spent every waking moment on the ground. And of course, that's easier to do when you're outside of the governance structure. You're not executive council members. And so in that period where we transitioned into holding both portfolios, like me, for instance, area rep and division secretary in that regard, you had to be able to express to your residents what that dual role meant. And the fact that where I could have spent every day on the block, hearing the needs, putting up tents here, there, and everywhere, and spending time in and around the district, it is now balanced with spending that time seeing about the needs of the people through the policies and programs and so on. And so having that dual role comes with some challenges, because you're now in a position to make the plans or put the plans into action. But now your residents aren't seeing you as much as they need to see you. What I've done to be able to ensure that I bridge that gap is ensure that my district office staff become the ears and eyes of their area representative. Now, it doesn't take away from your actual role. Some people just want to see you, feel you, and it's not that they would always want or make a demand of you. Sometimes they just want to pray for you. Sometimes just to see if you're okay, to ensure that you know that you still have their fullest support. And so you have to ensure that you empower your district staff in a particular way and empower the district itself to make moves. So even if you're not physically there, they can be empowered enough to what is required of the district. And that comes, for instance, where you ensure that you empower your village councils, your youth groups, your police youth groups, for instance, and all the subsets of your community in a particular way, where they take the initiative and then come to you for that support or probably for guidance into how to get particular things done. But it has not really been a challenge to me. As I said, I don't live in my electoral district, so I'm not physically there. If, I open my door, I'm seeing my residents. That takes a lot out of me, because I would now have to physically traverse from where I live here in Scarborough to my electoral district. But I think that open door policy, having your residents know that they can call you at any time. They may not always get you, because of course, if you're sitting in a meeting, if you're doing an interview like I am right now and they're trying to call you, they wouldn't be able to get you. But that call back, that response, that having someone else take the call for you, or responding to you or trying to meet their needs on your behalf is very critical. Also empowering the residents themselves so they can give information on your behalf, And so I think it's a blessing to be able to serve. And if you ask me which one of the roles I enjoy more, it will be that of area representative, because that is where you feel as if you're really making the impact on the ground with the people. And I have a very close relationship with my residents. When they call me assemblyman or they call me secretary in the district, it feels very out of place, because I know what it felt like to be on the outside in that. And I keep referring to that 6-6 period. We probably need some counseling with that period, because it was a really crazy period. We felt very out of place and so on. But I want to continue to let my residents know that the journey continues with them. And it's not the area representative in front leading a district. It's the area representative side by side with the residents of the district, ensuring that, we meet the needs, together. And so I remain committed to my electoral district, which I love with my everything. It's a pleasure to serve them. We come up with some really solid initiatives together. They're always there, ready, willing, and able to sit at the table with me and for us to meet those goals. As it relates to the current crime upsurge in my electoral district, and, I said it in the House last week, it's considered a crime hotspot, that electoral district. And, it's not something to be proud of at all. And we've spent some time as young persons in the district speaking to what the challenges are. A lot of the young persons who are engaging in that particular life, and I've seen, the minorities speak to the fact that it's because they're unemployed. And so government has a role to play in the fact that, we've had this challenge in that particular district and across the island by extension. Most of these young persons are employed. They are gainfully employed too. We have a lot of work to do as community and getting back into that mode where it took the village to raise a child. And where all community groups, side by side and hand in hand, have to come together to ensure that we work towards creating the type of Tobago we want to see and to be proud to call home. And so it can never be an area representative is left with the burden of ensuring that a community is held together. we have our churches, and all these community groups I spoke to earlier having to come together. We saw a perfect example of that just last week, where Adrian Mark, one of my residents, he no longer lives in the district, but of course, when your navel string bury in a district, it bury in a district. And with the recent upsurge in criminal activity there, even leading to the unfortunate death of a very young resident, Mr. Beres Joseph, Mr. Mark pulled community groups together, ably supported by area rep. But I told him, listen, in these scenarios, sometimes it's good for a resident to take the charge. Sometimes you don't want the political face as always being the lead of such a charge. And so he took the charge and got all the denominations together, all the churches, Baptist, Seventh-day Adventist, Church of God, Moravian, all together, to sit and come up with a strategy, of course, where we include a spiritual, calling into that electoral district to ensure that we had that ability for us to see that it's bigger than us. And it's something that needs to be pulled back, and the community needed to be able to understand that, again, it takes a village to raise a child. And we've gone so far from that. We've gone so far from parents taking full responsibility and, just depending on the education system again, to be able to grow their children up for them. From a neighbor being able to correct a child. We've gone so far from that. And so it's time for community to get back to the traditional values. Of course, change is always welcomed, but we want us to go back into a space where Tobago maintains its moral values and the ability for communities to come together to ensure that we look out, for children, and to ensure that they grow up in a particular way where they understand that they have to turn out into positive contributors to society, and how all of us must be a part of that.
Thank you. Well, viewers, we're going to take a quick break right here, and we'll be back right after this. See you soon.
The energy filled the skies.
So guys, there are some new developments in housing in Tobago. So it's goat racing time. This is 116, the show that keeps you in the know with all things Tobago House of Assembly. Each week, 116 delivers a fun and engaging overview of the latest developments, achievements, activities, and events of our dynamic assembly. So join me. Let's dive into the Tobago House of Assembly's Week in Review right here on 116.
When the game is on, you don't want to miss the best moments. With AMPLIA TV, you can enjoy our ultimate sports package and watch your favorite games on the go. Stay connected and informed with sports news, scores, and stats with AMPLIA's fastest internet speeds. Up to 1 gigabyte fiber internet, you can stream riveting football action, cricket, NBA games, and much more. With AMPLIA, it's game on. Visit amplia.co.tt or call 800-4663. AMPLIA. Do more, live more.
Rotisserie, mouth-watering fries, salads, combos, and specials galore. Feeling for something to eat? Come and see. Our rotisserie is seasoned to the T. Kicking chicken, masala, and jerk roast. Crispy fries made from scratch. Who do you know can beat that? Or salads freshly cut and packed. When you taste it, you'll be wanting to come back. So come check us out on number 2 Robinson Street, Uptown Scarborough, Tobago. We open on Saturday nights from 7:30 to 11:30 p.m. Monday to Thursday, we're open from 10 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. and on Friday, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Contact us at 772-7443 and all social media handles at The Rotisserie Factory.
A brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawn, and as the passion starts.
Welcome back. We are still beneath the surface here, right here on Tobago Updates. And yes, we are chatting with Assemblyman Miss Zorisha Hackett. Miss Hackett, during the conversations, we touched on so many aspects, education, especially where early childhood up to primary school to even high school. But as we know, we have a lot of Tobagonian students who are studying whether in Trinidad, whether in KFIL, Mona, or even internationally. And you would have made an interesting contribution where you want Tobagonians to really have pride in who they are.
Yes.
And it starts with our tertiary education students because they are going to get a degree or master's to come back to contribute to the island.
Yes.
And while Trinidad has GATE, thankfully we have a program here called DATAS.
Well, Trinidad and Tobago has GATE.
Yes, Trinidad and Tobago has GATE.
But we have an additional financial assistance program here.
Called DATAS.
Yes.
So, talk to us a bit about DATAS and some of the assistance it lends to tertiary level education students.
So the Department of Advanced Training and Advisory Services under the Division of Education is a service or department, are responsible for providing financial assistance to students who qualify. So it's not a compulsory bursary or grant or scholarship fund. As a matter of fact, it has gone so far beyond its remit because it's only allocated $500,000. In any given year, we go upwards of $4 million in the financial assistance provided to our Tobagonians who are studying on island, because we provide assistance to those who are studying there at the Tobago Hospitality and Tourism Institute, the only hospitality and tourism institute in the country. Of course, over the waters there in Trinidad, regionally or internationally. We have had challenges where persons come to the department asking for financial assistance to attend a university abroad for a program that's offered right here in Trinidad and Tobago. And so the challenge usually comes with either accreditation or being able to be integrated if particular license for integration are required, etc. And so we've also had challenges with persons who would want to migrate, but they want the financial assistance. So they're coming to the division and holding true and fast to this contract of, trying to come back here. And they know they would not be. Right. We also have particular career goals that do not fit into the developmental goals of the island. And so we've had to do some policy shift recently. And so very soon you're going to see us come out to the public to speak to the particular shifts. Chief Secretary, however, alluded to some of those shifts recently when he gave his New Year's speech, and he spoke to the focus of the Assembly over the next fiscal and beyond. And so there are particular areas that we're going to lend support to in the first instance, and then we're going to, on a needs basis, look at particular areas that fall out of those categories. And those areas are education, and we want to focus on special education, as well as qualifying males to get into the teaching fraternity, because there's a dirt there. We want to focus on tourism and everything tourism related. And when I say tourism, I'm speaking to the division now, where there is a overview on the culture, antiquities, elements. And so the Secretary of Tourism, and when she comes on Wednesday, she's going to speak to the scholarship program in partnership with the Division of Education that we're going to roll out, that is going to enhance and build capacity in those areas: tourism studies, culture, the arts, steel pan, even steel pan tuning, and all these other elements where we realize that there's some void and we need to build capacity here on the island. We're going to spend some time as well treating with agriculture, and of course health. We always want to ensure that we equip our professionals with the necessary funding and support to be able to come back and contribute to the island of Tobago. We're going to spend some time as well focusing on infrastructure, because there are particular areas, coastal engineering, and even persons getting into the fields of surveying and so on, where we understand that there's a shortage on the island. But more than ever, we're going to spend quite some time focusing on the public service and ensuring that there is public service training as it relates to supply chain management and, all these areas that we have challenges with, procurement and so on. So the Assembly is going to be focused on these particular areas in the next academic year and beyond, because we realize that we have some challenges finding the bodies to place in these particular positions. We have an oversaturation in particular areas, law, for instance, right? A lot of persons are pursuing fields in law, but we have so many young professionals in the legal space and are now having challenges gaining employment. And there are other such saturated areas. So the focus must be on the areas we actually have that void, that gap, and in trying to bridge that gap through the financial support. We have challenges with students speaking to the fact that the support takes a bit of a time for us to be able to come up with, and that is because of the allocation. $500,000. And if one may not know that the Department of Advanced Training and Advisory Services funding come out of the DP. So the developmental programs budget a part of that. And that's the same budget we have our school repairs. That's the same vote where, you know, everything developmental comes out of. And so having to contend with all the infrastructural needs of our plans here on the island, all 57 schools, the libraries, and those special purpose companies, and have to juxtapose that against, you know, funding for financial assistance. We juggle and deliberate on that over and over again because we see the need to build capacity and to ensure that, and not only tertiary in the traditional sense, but technical vocational areas as well. And we have to ensure that we push that trajectory of a dual track of education and not only the academic part strictly in that sense. And so the funding goes towards that as well. And so we would be rolling out the specific programs we're going to prioritize, and then we're going to have students understand, you know, what the needs analysis looks like. And we have students who also may be thinking of going off to, let's say, St. George's, and we want to spend some time focusing on what we have here, the University of the West Indies. A lot of persons may not know, but the funding is not even given on a national level to St. George's. And so we have so many students applying there. But when it's time for them to do their internship or so, they're going off to the United States and then falling in love with that particular pathway of medicine and not coming back to contribute, because it's a grant and it's expected that if you're afforded such a grant or bursary, that you come back and contribute to Tobago's development. And so we would be spending some time really zeroing in and doubling down on what we're going to be able to provide the assistance for once it aligns to the developmental goals of the island. And then, of course, if you have other avenues of being able to fund that, you have to come to the table very honest and open, because it's not just free money that you're going to get. For every student we fund, you know, it takes away from some other developmental goal. And so we want students to really even consider that working before you go off to university. That's how I did it. I had to work before I go off. I know everybody thinks that there's this time or clock at time and that's there. And if you don't come out of high school now and go straight in, you're losing out on something. But there is only so much of the resources to, you know, to go around all of the divisions and to ensure that we build this island. And so we have to really take a step backward and look at how we actually fund these programs and who really needs the assistance versus who just wants the assistance. And so we're going to continue trying our very best to stretch that $500,000, taking it all the way up to $5 million in some cases, to ensure that we educate our Tobago young persons. But we also want persons to come to the table understanding that it's a privilege to be able to get that support and to make the best of the opportunities afforded to them when they go off to tertiary.
Understood. And as you spoke to creating holistic students and that holistic development, sport plays a huge role when it comes to developing those students all around. But we are seeing the track and field season coming up, but the Dwight York Stadium is not available for the schools to use for their sporting activities in preparation for things like
I'm glad you noticed that. I'm glad you noticed that, Miss Felix. I mean, it's a heartbreaker. It's a heartbreaker because of the 8 education districts. Tobago excels, both at the primary and secondary school level nationally, track and field. And we run into this challenge every track and field season, this second term track and field January into March season, where we have challenges accessing the Dwight York Stadium, which is not under the remit of the Tobago House of Assembly, as you may know. And so, fortunately for the Tobago House of Assembly, we spent some time investing in that Shore Park recreation grounds. And that's where most of our schools had to utilize in preparation for zonals and, of course, national championships. And so we continue to be burdened with I don't know if it's the timing that is always wrong, if we don't plan ahead, if we don't look at the bigger picture. And I know the stadium is being upgraded for Carifta, and that's all well and good. But I believe that in the development or the work program of any particular ministry, and in this regard, Ministry of Community Development and Sport, you must know that with the one stadium we have here in Tobago, our schools would be disadvantaged if they are not given the opportunity to utilize the turf that they would have to utilize nationally when it's actually time for national championships. And so I'm looking at how could we find a way that when we're rolling out repair works, we align it with the actual needs of the users of the particular facility. And so, yes, we've had schools having to, utilize a field in or around their vicinity in preparation, but the real serious athletes are not partaking in the school's activities for fear of injury. And so I want to make a call that Tobago needs to be given that priority as it relates to the facilities the Tobago House of Assembly is not responsible for. It's unfortunate that our 8 secondary schools, Hammond School of SDA doesn't really take part in these track and field events, but the 8 that are very serious about track and field be given the opportunity to utilize the Dwight York Stadium. It's our only stadium, and you could hear the passion in my voice because I feel very strongly about the fact that we have to always settle for something else. When you have all these facilities in Trinidad, so if one is down, you have the opportunity to utilize another. We don't have such a luxury in the Tobago space. And so I'm calling on the powers that be to please be mindful of the timing of these repair works, because the Tobago athletes are disadvantaged whenever we have these types of works coming in their season. Yeah?
Understood. And Secretary, wrapping up, because we're out of time.
We are. I thought we were gonna be here till 9:30.
Okay, well, let's go till 9:30. So, looking forward for 2025 and your vision, for this last lap, because very soon you have to return to the polls. What can we expect to see?
If I return to the polls,
will you be returning to the polls?
That's something I'll have to sit and really internalize and make some peace with my maker and see if it's a lot. It takes a lot out of you, and again, I cannot make a decision that I'm going back to the polls on my own. I have to go back to my community in the same way it started. Go back to my community and seek their support again. Even before I, make that decision of being screened, I have to go back to the residents of Bethesda, Leketo, Golden Lane, and that part of Woodlands that I'm responsible for, and ask them if they're satisfied. For the most part, with, my ability to advocate on their behalf, and if I should be given the privilege to continue advocating on their behalf. But right now, I am trying to get through with that mandate I was given for the first 4 years. I don't know what is going to be afforded of me. I'm technically in 2 terms, because if you count that 11 months that I was area representative of Plymouth, Golden Lane, and now Bethesda, it didn't last 4 years, but it's considered a term. And so this is my 2nd term, technically. And I look back at the last 4 years, 3, and we're going on to 4, and I look at how much I was able to achieve for my residents, and I look at how much more there is to achieve. One of that being that Culloden recreation facility, as we were speaking about sports, and the fact that, they have advocated so strongly in that Golden Lane area for a place they can call home, because they have a lot of talented athletes, and they have to juggle between the Table Peace Recreation Ground and the Mariah. And it's not that every village should be afforded a recreation space. I mean, we're in close proximity here on the island, 116 square miles. You can find a recreation space just a stone's throw away from your village. But when you have so much talent in one space, and you're seeing an upsurge, as we spoke to, of crime and so on, and you're hearing the young people asking you for a particular facility, and hearing that cry for 21 or so years before I became area representative, and be given by an area representative who served 3 terms. Yeah, there was one particular area representative who sat in that seat for 3 consecutive terms. And that, again, was dangled as a carrot on a stick to residents there. Then you had another area representative serving 4 years, 1 term. And she was unable to deliver as well. And it's so difficult to deliver in 1 term, yeah? And then you're hearing that. And I walked that particular area electoral district, not promising my residents anything. I spent most of the time listening, because I saw area representatives before me making promises they could not keep. Same political organization, but even when the face changed, the promises were not able to be materialized. And I decided to do it differently. I decided to listen and make notes and advocate strongly for the things that I knew that my residents deserved. And one of that was the Lekito Community Facility, which recently opened as well. The collective cry of Lekito, we need a space to be able to push culture and the arts, which we're known for. Golden Lane, we need a recreation space so we can be able to see the talent of our young persons move and transform into that place where they can become professionals in those sporting disciplines. And so it's one of the areas that is of priority to this assembly. And we're hoping to get through with that before the end of this fiscal. And so I'm really going to continue pushing the need for us to realize the dreams and aspirations of our people, the people that have placed us there. As we're on this as well, I'm switching back to the division. We have 2 facilities that have been really near and dear to me as well. And we're going to open or recommission. Okay. We're going to recommission one this Thursday, and that is the Kendall Aquatic Facility. A facility that when we came into office, we saw in a total state of deterioration. The pools were literally leaking underground. We had to suction lines, and we just had to literally rebuild the pools, both pools, the training pool and the actual pool from the ground up. And of course, that came with deterioration from sea blast, and its location right there next to the coast cost us approximately $2 million to repair. And it has been closed for about 2.5 years because you just couldn't use the facility. You know, so we had to dig all the way under the pool and get those repairs done and just do everything from the bottom all the way back up. And so we're going to recommission that facility this Thursday from 10 a.m. There's also another facility that has been languishing. A lot of persons probably think this facility is under the Division of Community Development, Youth Development and Sport, and that's the WIM Youth Development Facility. It's also under the division, the remit of the Division of Education, Research and Technology, obviously because it was the parent division before it split into Youth Affairs and Sport, and then was realigned to ComDev, Youth Dev and Sport. And so that facility, a brainchild of the former administration for over a decade, and moved through the hands of about 5 or so secretaries before it came to me. You know, it was only about 69% or so complete when we came into office, contrary to what the minority leader spoke to in the House about it being 90% completed just last Thursday, and I'm going to dispel that. That is not accurate. 69% with several administrative challenges and a debt left there for us to pay to get it up and running. Okay. Very soon we're going to see the doors of that facility open, another critical area where we must focus on youth and youth development, that WIM area. And so it's our responsibility as well, and it's going to be in our best interest to be able to provide the facilities that are necessary to ensure we engage and positively engage our young persons. So very soon we're going to see the doors of that facility finally opening. That's not a recommission, that's an actual opening, and we're going to be proud on such a day because, again, we have met so many incomplete, poorly maintained facilities. We spend most of our term treating with those matters, and so now we want to be able to open these facilities and give Tobagonians the assets they so deserve.
Excellent. Well, we want to thank you so much for your time this morning. We know we went over a bit. Yes. Is there anything that you want to tell Tobagonians and members of your district before we go off this morning?
I want Tobagonians to remember that although we operate within a political landscape, we are all Tobagonians first. All Tobagonians. And so there must come a time when we put aside the politics and we speak to what does it really mean when we push that mantra of making Tobago the greatest little island on the planet? Does it mean that we put party colors on and only when we're in governance, we work towards that goal? Or is it that we understand that we each have a part to play in that vision? Yeah. And so I want us, even in the coming of the silly season, and we call it that for a reason, is for us to look back and see. When you look at governance on this island and the fact that for 3 years you had a brand new administration, none of us ever had been in a role such as this one before. There was no one to pass a baton on to us. And so we had to almost operate as on-the-job trainees, which there is nothing to feel ashamed of. As an administration, we had to start this thing from the bottom and work our way upwards. And so we've been having a lot of comparisons about what happened before us and how much we were able to achieve in these 3 years. But I want Tobagonians to be very, very reflective of the fact that if you compare our first term in governance to the first term in governance of our predecessors, you're going to see that you got more bang for your buck under this TPP administration. It's clear as day, and I dare anyone to, to say otherwise. And comparing us to a 21-year legacy is also not justified. It's also not fair. So it's either we're compared pound for pound, first term versus first term. And if we were able, and I'm saying we as an island, to give the former administration 5 terms to get the job done, and we can even speak to how much they were not able to get done in 5 terms, then Tobagonians must also sit and really contemplate if this administration deserves the opportunity to be able to bring the development the island truly needs. And so I want you to pray for us. I want you to stick with us, to keep holding our hands, giving us the constructive criticism, because I welcome that. We're all new to this, and so we're learning as we're growing in the politics to be able to be fair in the assessment, though, and for us to continue to love and respect each other as Tobagonians. Yeah?
And wrapping up, Ms. Sackett, if you were to go back in time and speak to little Zia, what piece of advice would you give to her?
Little Zia. I would tell little Zia that this world is a cruel place, but you must understand the contribution that you're making to it and keep that as your focus. I think that I have gone through some really serious challenges in and out of the politics. And I think one of the things is that confidence I have in myself, and the fact that I understand that there's so many people rooting for you, even more than those that are rooting against you. And the fact that resilience and that ability to strive even beyond the obstacles is what makes you or defines you as an individual. And to keep prayer as that shield and buckler in everything you do. Before you step out there, you cover yourself in God's grace, and his guidance, and you go out there and get the job done. I think I would go back and tell myself, the obstacles would come, but you have all that is required of you to overcome them. And so I want to thank you all for the opportunity for such an interview today. I have a major heads of department meeting this morning. We're going to go through all our strategic goals for the final year of this term, and for us to continue doing the good job as the Division of Education, Research and Technology. And as well, I want to tell my electoral district that I am very, very proud by their support of me. I feel like almost like, they have covered me in a particular way where, not a bad word or not a bad condemnation can happen with their area representative, and they're very protective of me, and I'm very protective of them. And I want us to continue in this beautiful relationship we have as, the area that is beautifully called Bethesda Leketo. And so thank you again. Thank you, Tobago. God's richest blessings and guidance to each of you.
All right, I want to again say thank you so much to you and wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Guys, we want to thank you so much for being a part of this morning's discussion. Thank you for your likes, your shares, and your comments, and all that you have been doing to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster here on the island of Tobago. We want to remind you that we continue our Beneath the Surface series this week, and tomorrow we are going to see Mr. Assemblyman Niall George is going to be on our GMT session, and we are also expecting Mr. Wayne Clark
so we have a long program tomorrow
in the morning show. So guys, the conversations continue, and we hope to continue hearing what our representatives are doing within their districts as well as in their different divisions. Again, we want to say thank you and have a great day.
Hear me, neighbor, 60,000 people strong.